Hello, everybody. It's been a long time since I filmed a long form sit down video, so I thought I would get back into the swing of it by going over what I read in the month of October and what I plan to read in the month of November. If you don't already follow me on my TikTok, you definitely should at Caitlin Brune Books. I definitely am more consistent posting on TikTok. If you don't know me, my name is Caitlin. I'm 23 and I am a recent college graduate and I read a lot in my free time, so that's what this channel is dedicated to. Without further ado, let's get into the 8 books that I read in the month of October. The first book that I picked up in the month of October was Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. I started reading this in September. I adored this book. I finished this very early on into October before it even came out because I got the Book of the Month edition, so it was released a little sooner. I really like Stephanie Garber. I read the Caraval series and I've read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series this year, and I like her, but she is definitely like a very iffy author for me. She's not someone I love, but I do enjoy her books, and they usually range between a 3 to like a 4.5 star, with the exception of The Ballad of Never After was a 5-star read for me. So this one surprised me by also being a 5-star read. I really enjoyed this one. I think it's going to be a part of a series based on how the ending is. I love the old-timey Hollywood vibes. So this follows a girl, her name is Holland. Holland is a grad student, and the whole premise of this book is based around this folklore class that hits a little too close to home. So it's kind of describing this like underground secret society that all of these folklore tales are actually real. And so one day Holland visits the watchman who is supposed to be able to tell you when you are going to die. And the man basically tells Holland she's going to die on Halloween night. So this story picks up on Halloween Eve, and it's just a great like mystery. There's a mystery element to it. It's kind of adventurous. It's kind of like a treasure hunt feel. And we have 2 different love interests that pop up. And she is basically on this mission to find what is called the alchemical heart, because the watchman told her that's the only way that she could potentially not die that day. It's really good vibes. Nice Halloween-esque read without being too Halloween-y or too paranormal. So I really enjoyed it. Definitely be picking up the next one if there is a next one. The next book I picked up was The Court of the Dead by Rick Riordan and Mark Oshiro. Love Rick Riordan, auto-buy author. Look at this awesome, really cool audition that they've got going on in here. I was hesitant not to pick up this book in particular because I really enjoyed The Sun and the Star, which is the prequel. Not really a prequel, but it's the book that comes before this. And one of the things that I found really interesting was Rick Riordan, when he announced that this book was coming out. We all thought that the next Riordan book that would come out would be the 3rd book in the Percy Jackson Senior Year Adventures. And when he announced this one, I was surprised. I was like, oh, we're getting a Sun and the Star sequel. Awesome sauce. Love that. But one of the things that Rick Riordan said when it was coming out was he wasn't going to write a sequel. They were coming up with a story that would work. And the story is what drove the writing of this book. And I think that actually worked out really well because I think the plot, the story, the entire message that this book is sending and the background like things that happen are so well put together. I think this is one of the best books in the Percy Jackson universe in general. There's a really good combination of action. The stakes are very real. You can totally understand the stakes, and they're high enough, but they're not world-ending stakes for once in the Percy Jackson universe. So it doesn't constitute a series. It fits really well. Even though it's kind of a part of a series, it's kind of a standalone within it as well. You're also dealing with Nico's emotions, and the idea of Mr. D as a therapist kind of cracks me up. But I absolutely adored this book, and if you're a Percy Jackson fan, definitely go ahead and pick it up. However, at this point in the Riordan verse, you almost have to have read a lot before this book. You definitely have to read through the Trials of Apollo, unfortunately. I am completely caught up now on the Riordan verse, with the exception of 2 books that I'll put right here, which are companion novels, so I'm not that concerned about what they're going to tell me. Definitely have read The Sun and the Star, because I think that gives you a really good intro into Nico and Will's relationship and how they are evolving past what they go through in that book. The next book I read was for my book club, and it is called If I Go Missing by Leslie Wolfe. I did not love this book. My book club is generally books that are outside of my comfort zone. I don't mind a mystery thriller, but I don't pick them up on my own usually. So I did read this book. I read it in like a night and a day. It was like 2 sittings, basically. It was very fast-paced. I was intrigued with where the story was going, but by the end, it was just iffy for me. I don't even remember the characters' names. That is so terrible. But that's usually what happens if I really don't connect with a book. I ended up giving that book like a 3.75 stars. So, not great, not terrible. The premise was this teacher's student goes missing. And at the same time, the teacher has neighbors moving in to her neighbor's house. She knows them and they have this whole past. And it evolves from there. But there were some cool twists and turns, some interesting things. I just felt like it wasn't super satisfying of a read. A run-of-the-mill mystery thriller. The next book I read was The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. It is the sequel to The X-Hex, which I do own. I don't own The Kiss Curse. I would pick it up in a thrift store, though. I would like a trophy of it. So The X-Hex and The Kiss Curse are very, like, atmospheric, paranormal, witchy reads set in, like, a small town in Georgia that's all about Halloween. So they're perfect for the October months. There is a third book, The Wedding Witch, which I will probably be picking up next Halloween. Ended up giving The Kiss Curse like a 4-star. I think I actually liked The Kiss Curse more than the X-Hex from what I remember, though I think I rated them the same thing. Next, I hit my 100th book of the year with Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I loved this book. I knew I would love this book as soon as I picked it up, and then it waited and waited and waited, and it sat on my physical TBR for 2 years, which makes me very upset. This is a like King Arthur inspired YA romantasy. Bree is a high school student, so she's like 16, I think, and she applies behind her parents' back to go to the school that her mom went to, which I think is UNC Chapel Hill. She's going to apply for this like pre-college program where they live on campus in the dorms. Almost immediately after her mom finds out she applied, they get into this huge fight, and then her mom dies in a car accident. But she decides to go to the program. She's kind of pushed to go to the program. And then once she's at the campus, she starts seeing things that are really freaky, like monsters, basically. And she starts to learn about this secret society that is based around Arthurian legend, where each of the kids in the society have a role to play. So some of them are descendants of the Knights of the Round Table or King Arthur, Lancelot, all of them. And some of them are like pledges that page for these people. So there's a lot of discussions in here about family dynamics and culture, because obviously our main character is a person of color and she's going to a predominantly white institution, and what that kind of looks like while she's also dealing with the psychological trauma of having just lost her mom. There's a lot going on in this book, and I think it does it so well. And I thought this was a trilogy. I know that the 2 books after this are Bloodmarked and Oathbound, and I was under the impression Oathbound was the last one, but then somebody commented on one of my TikToks and was like, I'm so excited for the next book. And I was like, there's a next book? I didn't know that this series was going on, but I'm excited for it. So I'm going to definitely be picking up Bloodmarked really soon as well. The next book I read was finishing off a series that I've been reading for forever, because there's 7 books, and that was A Touch of Chaos by Scarlett St. Clair. I have started with A Touch of Darkness, I think in 2022 or 2023. I really, really enjoyed that book. I love Greek mythology in general. I love reading about Greek mythology. There's definitely a theme here. This series is very interesting because it has a reading order. So there's the Hades x Persephone reading order, which combines 2 series together. There's the Hades x Persephone saga and then just the Hades saga. I recommend reading the reading order as it is, so that you get like the full experience in both POVs. What I ended up doing was I audiobooked all of Persephone's POV books, so all of the Hades x Persephone saga books, Touch of Darkness through A Touch of Chaos, and then for Hades books I read them via ebook on Kindle Unlimited, which ended up really working out for me. I really liked this book as well. I gave it a 4.75. So much happens in this book. I don't even want to spoil it, but it's basically, like I've said, a Hades x Persephone retelling. It's a very interesting world building situation where it's kind of contemporary, like there are phones and laptops, and she wants to be a journalist. So there's this element of our reality in it, but they also have the Greek gods and what it means to be a god in this world, and what would happen if the humans decide the gods aren't worth worshiping anymore. The next book I read was an anticipated release, and that is The Things Gods Break by Abigail Owen. I'm so upset because they canceled my order of the deluxe edition of the games gods play that would have matched this, so I'm on the hunt for one that is not atrociously priced. But I want the sprayed edges to match. I read the games gods play earlier this year, and so the Things Gods Break just came out, I think on October 21st, and I devoured it. It is a long book. It is also a Greek mythology retelling. We've also got a Hades kind of romance situation. And the thing about these books is when I started reading the games gods play, it felt like Wattpad in a good way, but like a way. I was just like, oh, this feels like a fan fiction. And then I got really into it by the end. And the same thing kind of happened with the Things Gods Break. I didn't really remember a whole lot from the games gods play. I remember the general plot, but I didn't remember a lot of the plot points. And what's really interesting about this book is that it takes you through each of those plot points. So it's kind of naturally helping you remember what happens without feeling super duper lost. I really enjoyed this book as well. I gave that one a 4.75 as well. I thought there were really interesting dynamics going on. The only thing I can say that I didn't like too much was it was long. It was drawn out. And then finally, the last book that I read in October was something I wasn't even going to pick up, which was Seduction Theory by Emily Adrian. I got this book through Book of the Month, and I have the audio version. So I was going to pick it up, just not this month. It was not even on my radar of things I was going to think to pick up. And then something happened where I couldn't access my Spotify for a little bit to read Play Nice, which is the audiobook I'm in the middle of. I couldn't play music either. So I was in the shower and I was going to do an everything shower. I'm like, I need something to listen to. So I threw on Seduction Theory because it was a really short audiobook. The audiobook in totality is only 5.5 hours, and I listened to it on 1.5. I could have listened to it on 2 times speed, but 1.5 I understand a little better. So I finished it in basically 3 hours. I listened to it from start to finish that day, and it was very interesting. It is definitely not something that is in my normal genres. This has a romance element to it, and it's very centered on the romance, but it's also very lit-ficky in terms of how it's written. The concept is very interesting. So you are reading the book as if it's an master's student in creative writing's thesis. So it's novel format, but it's also very wordy and very heavy on the words. So I probably wouldn't have been able to read it physically with my eyes. So listening to it was a really good choice. It was very odd at times. It focuses a lot on the sexualization of people and how people use their sexuality to their advantage. It also has an element of an LGBTQ plus relationship. It has themes of cheating within a marriage. So there's a lot going on in terms of that. I ended up giving it a 3.5. Was not my favorite thing, but I'm glad I read it. So those are all the books that I read in October. Let's move on to the books that I want to read in November. So moving on to the books that I want to read in November, because I read 8 books in October and I'm on track to hit my reading goal of 120 books this year, I want to read about 10 to 15 books this month. And so I put 7 books on my November TBR, and the rest will just be mood reads. So the first book that I need to read is Play Nice by Rachel Harrison. This book is my book club's pick for the month, and it was my choice. I picked it out because I own it. The thing about the book club is that they pretty much only read standalones, and a lot of it is mystery thriller. And this is not necessarily a mystery thriller. I wouldn't categorize it like that. I'm only about 15% of the way through the book. I'm reading it on Spotify Premium Audio. I am liking it. This book follows a girl who's an influencer, and she has this interesting family dynamic where her mom was not the best mom to her and her 2 sisters. And then her mom suddenly dies and they get left the house. And her mom's house is supposedly haunted. That was a big part of the reason that they don't have a good relationship with their mother. And so that's basically the premise, is that this girl is going to go live in this house and see if it's actually haunted. It's described as horror. We haven't gotten to the horror-y part yet where I am in the story. The story's just ramping up. So we'll see if I like this one, but it's nice and short. The audio is short too. It's 8.5 hours, which isn't too bad. Most of the audiobooks that I read are more than that. So, gotta finish this one. The next book I want to finally pick up is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I will probably be reading this one on Kindle Unlimited, but I own the beautiful deluxe edition with the gorgeous artwork on the inside. And I have already pre-ordered Brimstone, which is the next book in the series, even though I haven't read the first one because I'm weird like that. So all I know about this one is it is a romantasy, and it is going to be a part of a series, and people really, really like it. TikTok is definitely influencing this one, but I tend to like romantasies in general. So I don't know anything about this one, but I do finally want to pick it up this month because Brimstone also comes out this month. The next books I want to pick up are a part of the series, and I own 2 of them, and that is the Wicked Games series, which is Phantasma and Enchantra. And then I think there's a 3rd book coming out. So I am currently barely have gotten started in Phantasma. It is described as like a dark adult version of Caraval, which I am really into the vibes of that. I know it centers around 2 sisters, and the older sister has recently taken over her mom's powers of necromancy because her mom recently died, and it goes to the oldest, I believe the oldest daughter. I know that she's probably going to enter a game. I know that there's a love interest, and I know that there's spice. So I'm excited to read that. This was actually going to be an October read. It was not on my October TBR, but I was like, I'm going to get to it in October because it's Halloweeny and romantasy. But romantasy goes all through fall for me. So I'm going to read Phantasma and hopefully Enchantra as well this month. So that's pretty much it for the romantasy side of things. I also want to read The Defender by Ana Huang, which is a contemporary sports romance. Ana Huang debuted her first sports romance last year with The Striker, which is the book that comes before this. As with all of her series, they're interconnected standalones. I'm excited to pick up The Defender. It just came out a couple of days ago. Sports romance definitely needed to be in this selection of things for a little filler palate cleanser. It's a palate cleanser book, but I'm really excited to read it. And then the last book that I want to read is The Atlas Complex by Olivie Blake. I read the Atlas 6 and I read the Atlas Paradox earlier this year, and I really just want to finish this series. Not in love with this series. The writing style is what's not for me. Everything else about it, like if the plot was told to me a little differently, I would probably be really, really into it, but the writing style is so dense. Even listening to it, I'm struggling. But I really just want to finish off the series. This is the last book I have to read. Recently counted how many series I own, or not own, but how many series I started and then haven't finished that I want to finish, and it's just a ridiculous amount. So I am trying to finish some of the ones that I know if I don't read like soon, I'm never going to read in my entire life, and then they're just going to get DNF'd. Even though I'm like somewhat interested in it, I'm just never going to pick it up, and then it'll have been too long and I need to reread books, and I don't want to do that. So that's what the Atlas Complex is going to be there for. I think that's going to be 2026's goal, is just to have less series that I'm in the middle of that I don't particularly care about. And also getting a lot of books off of my TBR, because my own TBR is like over 80 books now, and that's just atrocious. I just need to read more books than I buy. Read more books off of my own TBR than I buy, because I read a lot of books. I've definitely read more books than I bought, but I want to make sure that I'm reading the books that I do buy, because as soon as they get put on my shelf, I swear I don't want to read them anymore, or I don't want to read them so soon anymore. And I'm like, what am I waiting for? Nothing. I'm just waiting for the mood to be right. That's enough rambling. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment below something that is on your November TBR, or if you've read any of these books that I've mentioned. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.